The afternoon sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of Mercer Road, just outside Prescott, Arizona. Dust devils spun lazy circles across the empty parking lot of Rusty's Diner, where 7 motorcycles sat gleaming in formation, chrome reflecting light like fractured mirrors. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and leather. If this story moves you, hit subscribe, because some promises are written in asphalt, blood, and a handshake that never fades. Garrison Iron Wolf sat at the corner booth, his scarred hands wrapped around a mug that looked toy-sized in his grip. At 54, he'd led the Desert Kings MC for 19 years, a brotherhood forged not in crime, but in the shared scars of men who'd returned from wars nobody wanted to talk about. His chapter didn't deal in narcotics or violence. They dealt in something rarer, keeping their word. The bell above the door chimed. A boy walked in, 11 years old, maybe 12. Thin as a wire hanger, with auburn hair that stuck up in the back and eyes too old for his face. He wore a backpack with one strap broken, held together with duct tape. His sneakers were 2 sizes too large. He looked directly at Garrison. "You're the Hell's Angels," the boy said. His voice didn't shake. Garrison set down his mug. "Close enough, Desert Kings. What do you need, kid?" The boy stepped forward. His name was Thorn Kellis. He didn't know his father. His mother worked nights at the truck stop 20 miles east, and Thorn had learned early that when you needed help, you didn't call the cops. You found someone who kept promises. "My teacher," Thorn said, "Mr. Silas Caro. I need you to follow him." The diner went quiet. The bikers exchanged glances. Garrison leaned back, leather creaking. "Why would we do that?" Thorn's jaw tightened. "Because something's wrong, and if I'm right—" He paused, swallowed hard. "If I'm right, people are gonna die." Garrison didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss the kid or wave him away. He'd learned long ago that when someone walked into your life asking for help, you listened first. "Sit down," Garrison said, nodding at the booth. Thorn slid in across from him. The other bikers, Flint, Rook, Kestrel, Merrick, Vance, and a wiry man they called Cypher, gathered closer. These weren't weekend riders with polished machines and no stories. These were men who'd bled together, who'd carried each other out of Fallujah, Kandahar, Mosul. "Start from the beginning," Garrison said. Thorn's voice was steady. "Mr. Caro teaches 8th grade history at Prescott Valley Middle School. He's been my teacher for 3 months. He's different. He listens. He stays after class to help kids who don't have anyone else." "Sounds like a good man," Flint said, arms crossed. "He is." Thorn's eyes darkened. "But 2 weeks ago I saw something. I was walking home late. Mom's shift got moved, and I passed the school. Mr. Caro's car was still there at 10 p.m. Garrison nodded. "Teachers work late. Not like this." Thorn pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It was a printout from the school's public event calendar. "He stays every night, doesn't leave until midnight, sometimes later, and his car. It's always parked facing the east exit, the one near the janitor's closet." Kestrel leaned in. "You think he's stealing?" Thorn shook his head. "I think he's hiding something. Or someone." The weight of those words settled heavy. Garrison studied the boy. Thorn Kellis wasn't crying. He wasn't hysterical. He was calm, precise, and terrified in the way only someone who'd seen too much could be. "Why us?" Garrison asked. "Why not the police?" Thorn's expression hardened. "Because Mr. Caro's brother-in-law is Deputy Chief Randall Hayes, and if I'm wrong, I just destroyed a good man's life. But if I'm right, He met Garrison's eyes. If I'm right and the cops are covering for him, I need people who don't care about politics. Garrison felt something stir in his chest. The old instinct, the one that had kept him alive when mortar rounds fell and friends bled out in his arms. The instinct that said, "This kid is telling the truth." "We'll follow him," Garrison said. "Tonight." By 7 p.m., the Desert Kings were in position. They didn't wear cuts or ride loud. Garrison had learned surveillance from his time in Army intelligence. Tonight, they moved like shadows. 3 rental sedans, radios synced, positioned at every exit of Prescott Valley Middle School. Garrison sat in the lead car with Rook, parked 50 yards from the east gate. Through binoculars, he could see Silas Caro's silver Honda Accord, still parked in the faculty lot. Lights glowed in one classroom on the second floor. "What are we looking for?" Rook asked. "Patterns," Garrison said. "Behavior that doesn't fit." At 9:47 p.m., the classroom light went out, but Caro didn't leave. Garrison watched through infrared optics as a figure moved through the building, not toward the main exit, but deeper inside, toward the maintenance wing. "He's going to the janitor's closet," Garrison murmured. 10 minutes later, Caro emerged from the east exit. He carried nothing. His gait was hurried, nervous. He climbed into his Honda and drove north, not toward the residential area, but toward the industrial district near the rail yards. "Follow him," Garrison said into the radio. They tailed him for 12 miles. Caro drove past closed warehouses, past the old meatpacking plant that had been shuttered since 2019, and finally turned into a gravel lot behind a storage facility called Ironclad Self-Storage. He parked, got out, looked around. Then he walked to Unit 47, unlocked it, and disappeared inside. Garrison's blood went cold, because when the door rolled up, just for a second before Caro pulled it shut, Garrison saw something that made his stomach twist. Sleeping bags, bottled water, a space heater, and the pale, frightened face of a teenage girl staring out at the night. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. Garrison didn't move, didn't speak. He just sat there in the darkness, engine off, breathing slow and controlled. Beside him, Rook exhaled hard. "Tell me I didn't just see that." "You saw it." "Who is she?" "I don't know." Garrison's voice was gravel. "But we're going to find out." He pulled out his phone and dialed Cypher, who was 2 blocks away in the second car. "I need you to run something. Prescott Valley area. Missing persons reports in the last 6 months. Female. Teenage." Cypher's fingers were already moving across his laptop. He'd been a signals analyst in the Marines. If there was a digital trail, he'd find it. "Give me 5 minutes," Cypher said. Garrison watched the storage unit. Caro hadn't come back out. The minutes stretched like pulled wire. Then Cypher's voice crackled over the radio. "Got 3 hits, 2 runaways, both located. One still active. Name? Ellery Ashwin, 16, reported missing by her foster mother on April 9th. Prescott PD classified it as a voluntary runaway. Case went cold after 2 weeks. Garrison felt his jaw tighten. "Send me her photo." The image came through. Auburn hair, green eyes, a school portrait with a forced smile that didn't reach her face. It was the girl in the storage unit. "Jesus Christ," Rook whispered. Garrison's mind raced. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was systematic, planned. Caro had been sheltering her for months. The question was, why? "We need to call this in," Rook said. "No." Garrison's voice was flat. "Not yet." "Iron, think about it." Garrison turned to face him. "Caro's brother-in-law is Deputy Chief Hayes. If we call the cops, what happens? They show up, arrest Caro, and the story is a teacher abducting a runaway. Clean narrative. Case closed." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying something doesn't add up." Garrison stared at the storage unit. That girl looked scared. But not of Caro. She looked scared of being found. Rook went silent. Garrison keyed the radio. "All units hold position. Nobody moves until we know what we're dealing with." At 11:23 p.m., Caro emerged from the storage unit. He locked it carefully, checked the lot twice, then drove away. The Desert Kings followed at a distance. Caro went home, a modest duplex on the east side of town. He parked, went inside, and the lights went out. Garrison sat in his car until dawn, thinking about the girl's face, and wondering what kind of monster she was running from. The next morning, Garrison made a decision. He went alone. The address for Ellery Ashwin's last known residence was a tract home on Willow Creek Drive. Small yard, chain-link fence, an American flag on the porch. The woman who answered the door was mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back, wearing a cardigan despite the Arizona heat. "Mrs. Brenner Sawyer?" Garrison asked. "Yes." He showed her his veteran ID, not a badge, but something that carried weight in places like this. "My name is Garrison Wolfe. I'm following up on a missing persons case. Ellery Ashwin." Brenner's face shifted. Not grief, not worry, something colder. "Ellery ran away 7 months ago," she said. Her tone was clipped, rehearsed. "The police said she probably went to California. I haven't heard from her since." Garrison studied her eyes. "You don't seem very concerned." "I am concerned," but her voice didn't waver. "Ellery was troubled. She had issues with authority, with rules. I did everything I could, but some kids just don't want to be helped." "What kind of issues?" Brenner's jaw tightened. "She made accusations, false ones, against people in this community who didn't deserve it. The social worker investigated and found nothing, but Ellery wouldn't let it go, so she left." "Accusations against who?" Brenner's eyes went cold. "I'm not going to drag innocent people through the mud again. If you find Ellery, tell her she's welcome back, but I won't tolerate lies." She closed the door. Garrison stood on the porch, his instincts screaming. He pulled out his phone and called Cypher. "I need everything you can find on Brenner Sawyer. Employment, associates, criminal record, everything." "Copy that." Garrison walked back to his motorcycle. As he kicked the engine to life, he saw something that made him pause. A black SUV parked 3 houses down. Tinted windows. Arizona government plates. Someone was watching. By noon, the pieces started falling into place. Cypher's research revealed that Brenner Sawyer wasn't just a foster mother. She was the director of New Horizons Youth Services, a state-contracted organization that managed foster placements across 3 counties. Her annual budget was $4. $2 million. Her board of directors included 2 judges, a county commissioner, and Deputy Chief Randall Hayes. "Follow the money," Cypher said over the phone. "New Horizons has been flagged twice by state auditors for financial discrepancies. Both investigations were closed without findings." Garrison felt the rage building. Someone's protecting them. Not just someone. Cypher's voice dropped. I pulled Ellery's case file. Guess who investigated her false accusations? Hayes. Bingo. And here's the kicker. Ellery wasn't the only one. In the last 3 years, 5 girls have gone missing from New Horizons placements, all classified as voluntary runaways. None ever found. Garrison's blood went cold. Where are the other 4? That's the question, isn't it? Garrison sat in his motel room, staring at the wall. The pattern was clear now. Ellery had seen something, or experienced something, that threatened powerful people. She'd tried to report it. The system had closed ranks. And when she wouldn't stop talking, someone made her disappear. Except Silas Carow had found her first. The teacher wasn't a predator, he was a protector. Garrison's phone buzzed. A text from Thorne. They're asking about you. The principal wants to know why bikers were at the school. Be careful. Garrison typed back, stay away from Carow. Don't talk to anyone. I'll handle this. He stood, grabbed his leather jacket, and walked out into the desert heat. His brotherhood was waiting at Rusty's diner, all 7 of them, faces grim. We're not calling the cops, Garrison said. We're going to war. And if this fight for justice moves you, hit that like button, because some battles aren't fought in courtrooms, but on dusty roads where men decide what honor means. The desert night swallowed sound. Even the crickets had gone silent, as if sensing what was coming. Garrison Wolfe stood in the gravel lot of ironclad self-storage, his breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Behind him, 6 motorcycles sat cooling in the darkness, engines ticking, chrome reflecting fragments of moonlight. The Desert Kings had positioned themselves with military precision, Flint and Merrick watching the main road, Vance covering the rear exit, Cypher monitoring police frequencies from his mobile setup. This wasn't their first operation. They'd extracted civilians from Ramadi. They'd pulled wounded brothers from collapsed buildings in Mosul, but this felt different. This was home soil, an American child hiding from American monsters. Garrison approached Unit 47 alone. 3 firm knocks, deliberate, not aggressive. Inside he heard movement, whispers, then silence. Silas Carow, Garrison said, voice low but clear. My name is Garrison Wolfe. I'm not here to hurt you. A student of yours, Thorne Kellis, asked us to follow you. We know about Ellery, and we know why you're hiding her. The silence stretched. Garrison could feel eyes watching him through the crack in the door. We know about New Horizons, he continued, about Brenna Sawyer, about Deputy Chief Hayes. We know what they've been doing to those girls. The lock clicked. The door rolled up 6 inches. Silas Carow stood in the gap, backlit by the glow of a battery-powered lantern. He was younger than Garrison expected, early 30s, wireframe glasses, the kind of face that belonged to someone who'd chosen teaching because they believed in saving kids, not managing them. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembled slightly. How did you find us? His voice cracked on the last word. Because we're good at finding people who don't want to be found, Garrison said. And because that kid cares about you enough to ask strangers for help. Behind Carow, pressed against a stack of plastic bins, stood Ellery Ashwin. She was smaller than her photo suggested, auburn hair pulled into a messy ponytail, oversized hoodie with the sleeves pulled over her hands. Her eyes, green and sharp, locked onto Garrison with the wariness of someone who'd learned that adults were dangerous. Are you cops? She asked. No, Garrison said. We're veterans. We don't work for the system. We work for people the system failed. Carow's shoulders sagged. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in months. If I let you in, I need your word, your absolute word. that you won't turn her over to child services. You have it. Caro stepped aside. The storage unit was 10 feet by 15 feet. Sleeping bags spread across the concrete floor. Cases of bottled water stacked against the wall. A small space heater. A cooler with sandwiches and granola bars. A cardboard box filled with books. Textbooks, novels, workbooks. Caro had been tutoring her, keeping her educated while keeping her safe. Garrison stepped inside. Rook and Kestrel followed, moving quietly, respectfully. They'd seen refugee camps. They knew what it looked like when someone was living in survival mode. Ellery backed into the corner, arms crossed. "I'm not going back." "We're not asking you to," Garrison said. He lowered himself onto an overturned crate, putting himself at her eye level. "But we need the full story, every detail. Because right now we're operating on suspicion. We need facts." Caro sat down heavily on a folding chair. He looked at Ellery. She nodded. "I've been a foster kid since I was 9, Ellery said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were clenched into fists. "My mom died of an overdose. No other family. I bounced through 3 homes before New Horizons placed me with Brenna Sawyer 2 years ago." She paused, swallowed hard. Brenna was nice at first, professional, but there were always these visitors, men in suits. They'd come late at night. Brenna would call certain girls downstairs, never the same girl twice in a row. The girls would come back different, quiet, scared. Garrison's jaw tightened. "Did she ever call you downstairs?" "Once." Ellery's voice dropped to a whisper. 4 months ago. There was a man there, mid-50s, expensive watch. He looked at me like I was something he could buy. Brenner introduced him as a benefactor who helps fund the program. He asked me questions, how old I was, if I had family looking for me, if I liked my placement. "What happened?" Rook asked quietly. "I ran." Ellery's eyes glistened. "I locked myself in the bathroom. When Brenner finally got the door open, I told her I'd scream. I'd call the police. I'd tell everyone what was happening." "And that's when they decided you were a problem," Garrison said. Ellery nodded. "The next day, Brenner filed a report saying I'd made false accusations of abuse. A social worker came, but it wasn't a real investigation. The woman barely asked me questions. She just kept saying I was acting out and that I needed to respect authority." Caro spoke up, his voice hollow. "That's when Ellery came to me. She was terrified. She said girls had disappeared before, other foster kids who'd asked too many questions. She showed me evidence." "What kind of evidence?" Garrison leaned forward. "Ledgers," Caro said. "Financial records she'd photographed with her phone when Brenner left them out. Names of girls, dates, payments listed as placement fees. But the amounts were astronomical. 50,000. 100,000 per girl." Cypher, who'd been silent until now, whistled low. "That's not foster care funding. That's trafficking money." "Exactly," Caro said. "I tried to report it. I went to Child Protective Services. I called the state hotline. Every time I was told the same thing. Ellery was a troubled teen with a history of lying. Her claims had been investigated and found baseless. Because Hayes was killing the investigations," Garrison said. "I didn't know that at first," Caro admitted. "But then I did some digging. Hayes is Brenner's brother-in-law. He's on the board of New Horizons. And every time a girl went missing, he personally closed the case as a voluntary runaway." Garrison stood, pacing the small space. His mind was racing through tactics, timelines, risks. "Where are the ledgers now?" "Hidden in my classroom," Caro said. "Inside a hollowed-out dictionary on my bookshelf. Row 3, Shakespeare section. If something happened to me, I wanted someone to be able to find them." "Smart." Garrison turned to Ellery. "Do you know where the other missing girls are?" Her face crumpled. "No, I only know their names. Sienna, Mara, Jade. And 2 others I never met. They disappeared before I got there." Garrison pulled out his phone, typed a message to Cypher. "Run those names. Missing persons. Prescott area. Last 3 years." He looked at Caro. "You did the right thing, hiding her, keeping her safe. But we can't stay in defensive mode forever. Hayes knows something's wrong. He's got people watching you." Caro went pale. "How do you know?" "Because there was a black SUV parked outside Brenner's house when I visited this morning. Government plates. Someone's tying up loose ends." Ellery's breath hitched. "They're going to kill us." "No!" Garrison said, his voice hard as iron. "They're not, because tonight we're getting that evidence, and tomorrow everyone's going to know what New Horizons really is." He turned to his brothers. "Flint, Kestrel, you stay here. No one gets through that door. Rook, Cypher, you're with me. We're going to Prescott Valley Middle School." Caro stood panicked. "The alarm system—" "Won't be a problem," Cypher said, cracking his knuckles. "I've bypassed more sophisticated security than a middle school." Garrison walked to the door, then paused. He looked back at Ellery. "We're going to end this, but I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Stay alive, stay hidden, and when this is over, you testify. You tell the world what you saw. Can you do that?" Ellery met his eyes. For the first time since they'd arrived, she looked like something other than a terrified child. She looked like a survivor. "I can do that," she said. Garrison nodded. "Then let's ride." The school was a ghost. Prescott Valley Middle School sat dark and silent at 2:17 a.m., a sprawling complex of tan brick and blue trim that looked harmless under the desert stars. But Garrison knew better. Buildings were never just buildings. They were witnesses, and this one had been watching crimes unfold for months. The Desert Kings approached from the east. 3 motorcycles, engines killed a quarter-mile out, coasting silent to the tree line. They wore dark clothing, no cuts, nothing that identified them. This wasn't a show of force. This was infiltration. Cypher moved first. He crossed the empty parking lot like a shadow, pack slung over one shoulder, and reached the east entrance in 40 seconds. The alarm panel was mounted beside the door, a standard Honeywell system, probably installed in 2015. Budget security for a public school. Garrison and Rook crouched in the bushes, watching. Garrison's radio crackled softly. "Panel accessed. Bypassing motion sensors. Give me 90 seconds." Garrison counted. 60 seconds. 70. 85. "We're green," Cypher's voice came through. "Doors unlocked. Alarms on a 15-minute loop. Get in, get what we need, get out." Garrison and Rook moved. The hallways smelled like floor wax and old textbooks, the same smell from every school Garrison had ever been in. Lockers lined the walls, posters about anti-bullying programs and the upcoming science fair, a banner reading Prescott Valley Pride. It all looked so normal. They took the stairs to the second floor. Caro's classroom was at the far end, room 214. The door was unlocked. Inside, student desks sat in neat rows. A whiteboard covered in notes about the Civil War. Bookshelves lining the walls. Garrison went straight to row 3, Shakespeare section. His hands moved across the spines until he found it. The complete works of William Shakespeare. A thick, hard-bound volume that looked decades old. He pulled it from the shelf. It felt wrong, too light. He opened it, hollowed out, and inside, wrapped in plastic, were 3 leather-bound ledgers. Garrison's breath caught. He opened the first one. Pages filled with handwritten entries, names, dates, dollar amounts, and signatures at the bottom of each page. Officials authorizing transfers, approving placements, signing off on paperwork that sent girls into hell. Page after page. Judge Marion Kellett, County Commissioner Luis Vega, Child Services Director Patricia Thorne, and on 17 different pages, the same signature, Deputy Chief Randall Hayes. Jesus Christ, Rook whispered beside him. Garrison pulled out his phone and started photographing. Every page, every name, every transaction. He worked methodically, his hands steady despite the rage building in his chest. This wasn't just corruption. This was industrial evil. He was on page 43 when Cypher's voice crackled urgently over the radio. "We've got company. 3 units, coming in fast from the west." Garrison's head snapped up. "How long?" 2 minutes, maybe less." "They knew we were coming," Rook said. Garrison stuffed the ledgers into his jacket and grabbed his radio. "Cypher, meet us at the rear exit. Rook, move." They ran. Behind them, the sound of car doors slamming, voices shouting, "Prescott PD, building is surrounded." Garrison and Rook hit the stairwell, taking the steps 3 at a time. They burst through the rear exit, just as flashlights swept the hallway behind them. Cypher was already there, engines running on all 3 bikes. "Go, go, go!" Garrison shouted. They mounted up and tore across the soccer field, tires ripping through grass. Behind them, officers poured out of the building. Headlights flooded the field. A voice over a loudspeaker. "Stop! Police!" But the Desert Kings didn't stop. They hit the fence line, bikes roaring through a gap near the maintenance shed, and burst onto the access road. Highway 89 was a quarter-mile ahead. Once they hit the highway, they could scatter. But as they approached the intersection, 3 more cruisers appeared, blocking the road. "Roadblock!" Rook shouted. Garrison made a split-second decision. "East! Split up!" They veered hard, engines screaming. The formation broke. Rook heading north, Cypher cutting south, Garrison staying visible on the main route. He wanted Hayes to follow him. Let the deputy chief commit everything to stopping the man with the evidence. In his rearview mirror, he saw the lead cruiser break formation. Following him, Garrison opened the throttle. Highway 89 at 2:30 a.m. was empty, just asphalt and desert and the roar of his engine. He pushed the bike to 90, 100, 110, wind tearing at his jacket. The ledgers pressed against his chest like a heartbeat. Behind him, Hayes was closing the gap. Garrison knew this road, every turn, every mile marker. At marker 47, there was an old dirt access road that led to an abandoned ranch, a place where he and his brothers had trained for night operations. Isolation, no witnesses. Perfect. He cut the turn hard, gravel spraying. The cruiser followed. Garrison rode another half-mile, then stopped in the center of the old ranch yard. He killed the engine, climbed off the bike, and waited. Hayes' cruiser skidded to a stop 30 yards away. The deputy chief emerged, service weapon drawn, face flushed with fury. "Step away from the bike, Wolf!" Garrison stood still, hands at his sides. "Can't do that, Chief." "You broke into a school. You stole evidence." "Evidence of your crimes," Garrison said. His voice cut through the night like a blade. "Trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy. How many girls, Hayes? How many did you sell?" Hayes's gun didn't waver. "You don't know what you're talking about." I know exactly what I'm talking about. Garrison took a step forward. Ellery Ashwin told us everything. About Brenna, about the men who came to her house, about the girls who disappeared. And these ledgers? He patted his jacket. They've got your signature on 17 pages. Those are forgeries. Are they? Garrison smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Then you won't mind if we turn them over to the FBI, let them authenticate the handwriting, run a forensic audit. Hayes's face twisted. You have no idea who you're dealing with. This goes higher than you think. Judges, commissioners, people who can make you disappear. I spent 2 decades making insurgents disappear, Garrison said quietly. You think I'm scared of bureaucrats? Behind Hayes, headlights appeared, not police cruisers, news vans, 3 of them, Phoenix stations, satellite dishes already extending. Hayes spun around. What? You wanted to know how far this goes, Garrison said. Now everyone's going to find out. Cypher had done his job perfectly. 20 minutes ago, he'd sent anonymous tips to every major news outlet in Arizona. Deputy Chief Randall Hayes confronting armed veteran at abandoned ranch. Possible corruption scandal. Live footage available. Cameras were rolling. Reporters were climbing out of vans. And Garrison held up the ledgers for everyone to see. Deputy Chief Randall Hayes, you're under arrest for human trafficking, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. And the whole state just watched you pull a gun on a veteran trying to expose you. Hayes's weapon dropped. His face went white. The rage, the arrogance, the certainty, all of it drained away in an instant. And Garrison felt something settle in his chest. Not satisfaction, not victory, just the cold, hard knowledge that justice had finally found its mark. Get on the ground, Garrison said. Hands behind your head. Hayes complied, and the cameras captured everything. 3 weeks later, the world looked different. The story had detonated across national news. Cable networks ran 24-hour coverage. The hashtag The New Horizons scandal trended for 11 days. Federal investigators descended on Prescott like locusts, seizing records, interviewing witnesses, dismantling an operation that had been running for nearly 4 years. Deputy Chief Randall Hayes was in federal custody, facing 47 counts including trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. His bond had been denied. His career was destroyed. His name would forever be synonymous with corruption. Brenna Sawyer had been arrested at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport with $340,000 in cash and a one-way ticket to Guadalajara. She'd tried to cut a deal, naming co-conspirators in exchange for reduced charges. The FBI had taken her statement and charged her anyway. 4 of the 5 missing girls had been located. Sienna Cortez, found in a group home in Nevada that turned out to be a front operation. She was 17 now, traumatized, but alive. Mara Elson, recovered from a trafficking ring in California. The FBI had raided the location based on leads from the ledgers. She was safe, receiving counseling, Jade Morrison, living under a false identity with a family in Utah who'd adopted her through illegal channels. She'd been returned to her biological grandmother in Tucson. The 4th girl, whose name had been redacted in early reports, had been found in a psychiatric facility in New Mexico, heavily sedated and diagnosed with dissociative disorder. Doctors were working to reverse the damage. The 5th girl, a 13-year-old named Camilla, had never been found. Her name haunted the investigation. Garrison thought about her every night, wondering if they'd been too late, wondering if she'd ever come home. 17 officials had been indicted. 8 had already taken plea deals. The rest were preparing for trial. New Horizons Youth Services had been dissolved, its assets seized, its board arrested, and Ellery Ashwin was finally free. Garrison stood outside Prescott Valley Middle School on a bright November morning, watching as students filed in for the day. The building looked the same. Tan brick, blue trim, American flag snapping in the breeze. But something fundamental had changed. The rot had been cut out. Beside him, Thorne Kelly's bounced on his heels, grinning. Mom says Ellery's settling in okay. She actually smiled yesterday, like a real smile. That's good, Garrison said. After the arrests, Ellery had needed a new placement. The state had scrambled to find a foster home that wouldn't traumatize her further. But before they could, Iris Kellis, Thorne's mother, had filed emergency custody papers. She was a single mom working 2 jobs, but she had space in her heart and her home. And Ellery had bonded with Thorne during the investigation. A judge had approved the placement in 48 hours. Now Ellery and Thorne were siblings, not by blood, but by the kind of bond that formed when people saved each other. The school doors opened, and 2 figures emerged. Ellery Ashwin looked different. Her hair was clean and styled. She wore new clothes, jeans, a purple hoodie, sneakers that actually fit. But more than that, she looked present, not hiding, not disappearing into herself, just there. Behind her, Silas Caro walked with his hands in his pockets, looking older, but somehow lighter. The district had offered him his job back. He'd declined. "I need some time," he'd told them, "to figure out what kind of teacher I want to be." But he'd agreed to volunteer, tutoring students after school, helping kids who fell through the cracks. Ellery spotted Garrison and walked over. Thorne immediately launched into a story about his science project, gesturing wildly. Ellery listened, a small smile on her face. Garrison watched her. 3 weeks ago, she'd been living in a storage unit, terrified that every car on the street was coming for her. Now she was just a teenage girl listening to her foster brother talk about volcanoes. It wasn't a miracle. It was just what happened when someone decided to fight. "Mr. Wolfe," Ellery said suddenly, cutting through Thorne's monologue. "Just Garrison," he said. She nodded. "Garrison, I wanted to say thank you for believing me, for not turning me over to the cops, for making them listen." Garrison crouched down so they were eye level. "You saved yourself, Ellery. You were the one brave enough to speak up, to risk everything to stop them. We just made sure people heard you." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "The FBI said they're still looking for Camilla, the 5th girl." "I know. Do you think they'll find her?" Garrison wanted to lie, wanted to promise her that every story had a happy ending. But he'd learned long ago that lies didn't help anyone. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I know they won't stop looking, and neither will we." Ellery nodded. Then, suddenly, she stepped forward and hugged him. It was quick, awkward, the kind of hug from someone who wasn't used to physical affection. But it was real. When she pulled back, she wiped her eyes. "I'm going to testify at the trials. I'm going to tell them everything." "I know you will," Garrison said. "And when you do, you're going to change the world." She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes, and walked back toward the school with Thorne. The 2 of them were laughing about something, just kids, just siblings. Garrison watched them go. Behind him, the rumble of motorcycles announced the arrival of his brothers. The Desert Kings pulled into the lot. Rook, Flint, Kestrel, Merrick, Vance, Cypher, 6 men who'd ridden into hell and brought a child back. "Ready to roll?" Rook asked. Garrison took one last look at the school, at the kids walking through the doors, at the world that was just a little bit safer because a brave boy had asked for help. "Yeah," he said, "let's ride." They mounted up. Engines roared to life, not aggressive but powerful. A reminder that some promises were kept not with words, but with action, with showing up, with refusing to let evil hide in silence. As the Desert Kings rolled out of the parking lot, Garrison thought about Thorne's question from 3 weeks ago. Why us? Because sometimes the law wasn't enough. Sometimes justice needed men who remembered what they'd fought for, who understood that protecting the innocent wasn't a job, it was a calling. And sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with guns or courts. They were fought with courage, with truth, and with the simple act of believing a child who said, "Something's wrong." The motorcycles headed south on Highway 89, chrome flashing in the November sun. Behind them, Prescott Valley grew smaller, but the promise they'd kept, the promise that someone would listen, someone would fight, someone would care, echoed forward. Because honor wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about showing up when a boy asked for help, and riding until justice was done. Thank you for riding with us through this story of courage, truth, and the power of keeping promises. If this tale moved you, hit that subscribe button. Because some battles are fought not in courtrooms or battlefields, but on dusty roads where ordinary people decide to do extraordinary things. Until the next story, remember, justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears leather, rides steel, and refuses to let evil win. Ride safe, and never stop fighting for those who can't fight for themselves.